Donald Trump's pick for the Solicitor General position, often referred to as the 10th Justice of the United States Supreme Court, is the guy who argued that it was not a crime for Donald Trump as commander-in-chief to order SEAL Team 6 to take out a political rival, or for Donald Trump to sell pardons to the highest bidder. John Sauer has been nominated. Let me break it all down for you here on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Thank you to the almost 40,000 people who have joined the channel at the intersection of law and politics since the election. I take that as with a lot of personal responsibility to bring you this type of analysis and commentary at the intersection of law and politics without smoke or mirrors or sunshine. And I'm going to bring it to you straight right now. Let's talk about John Sauer. John Sauer, for those that have heard our oral arguments that we've rebroadcasted on the Midas Touch Network, he has a very interesting voice. It's very high-pitched. It's very gravelly. It's almost difficult to listen to. And John is not from the Ernest Hemingway school of speaking. Every sentence is jam-packed with words that just seem to be strung along. He almost overpowers the justices and judges that listen to him with just sheer blunt force of speaking. I just can't put it any other way. And he's got the credentials on paper. John Sauer was a clerk for somebody that we know well here on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF, Michael Luttig, a judge from the Sixth Circuit who helped save democracy. He was an anti-Trumper, but he did clerk for Judge Luttig back in the day on his way to clerking for Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court. And he had a pretty decent appellate practice. And let's be fair here. We're fair on this show. He did win 2 major cases for Donald Trump. The first one was the Colorado decision that found that Donald Trump could not be declared by the state of Colorado or other states an insurrectionist to remove him from the ballot under the 14th Amendment, that he wasn't disqualified under the 14th Amendment. That was John Sauer who argued that successfully before the courts. And then we had, of course, the immunity decision from April leading to the ruling in July. That's also a John Sauer special along with the United States Supreme Court. And it's there. And at the appellate court just below the United States Supreme Court, the D.C. Circuit Court, which was headed at the time by Judge Pan, Judge Childs, along with a third judge who was a Bush appointee. And during both that inquisition, hot bench from Judge Pan at the D.C. Circuit Court, and then again at the United States Supreme Court, Judge Pan first posited, so what are you saying about absolute immunity when it comes to core constitutional presidential powers under Article 2? Are you saying he can do anything as commander-in-chief and get away with it, and we can't do a darn thing about it in our democracy, in our criminal justice system? And John Sauer said yes. And so Judge Pan is the one that posited at the time, so you're saying that he could use SEAL Team 6 and their snipers to go after a political rival on domestic soil and kill that person, i.e. Joe Biden at the time. And that would be not a crime and he would get away with it, absolute immunity. And John Sauer, well, yes, under those circumstances, I would stop. And it went downhill from there, from free thinkers who support our democracy and the rule of law. Later, when he was at the United States Supreme Court, he was questioned by people like Gorsuch with softball questions and even Chief Justice Roberts. And one of the questions was, besides the SEAL Team 6 and the assassination of political rivals, which again, he reiterated as an appropriate exercise of the application of immunity to protect the president because all he cared about he just had this dogged determination, unwavering focus on can't do anything to impair or impede the presidential powers, the presidential office, the office of the presidency, even if it means we have to look the other way with a criminal, murderous president. Gorsuch asked him questions, and others volleyed around with it, about other core constitutional powers that are in Article 2, like the power to pardon, which is not, you can't challenge the power of the pardon for the president. No one can say a darn thing about it. It's always been seen to be absolute. And they try to turn, again, questions about what if we had a criminal president? I mean, I don't think it's hypothetical any longer. We do have a criminal president after Tuesday. But they, at the time, they were in a world of hypotheticals. which they love to dive into. And they said things like, Gorsuch and the others said things like, what about if the president, Mr. Sauer, tried to sell pardons? He's got the pardon power, but what if he tries to sell them to the highest bidder? And we've seen that, by the way, as a crime in federal practice when we had, Rudy Tomjanovich, the governor of Illinois, try to sell Barack Obama's Senate seat. And that was in a quid pro quo to the highest bidder. And so there are federal laws on the books that make it a crime to try to sell your public duty and your oath of office and try to line your pockets in a quid pro quo. But according to John Sauer, no, he would be the president, sure. He's got absolute immunity, and there are no limits to absolute. It's right there in the title, absolute immunity. And so we all thought at the time that's an extreme position to take. But when we got the rulings in the immunity decision, they sided almost wholly with John Sauer and against Judge Pan at the D.C. Circuit. They didn't talk about SEAL Team 6, although Sotomayor did in her dissent, her strongly worded dissent about what this does to our democracy. She just said, we just, for the first time in jurisprudential constitutional Supreme Court history, just said it was okay and green lighted a murderous president to use SEAL Team 6 to take out a political rival. And we have John Sauer to blame for that. I mean, it was a hypothetical posed by Judge Pan, but he is such an absolutist when it comes to that immunity. And that we got a very hard to the right immunity decision as a result. But I'm not shocked. I mean, I have said publicly that while Donald Trump is busy trolling and giving the middle finger to the Democrats and even to his own quote unquote supporters by this set of wholly obscenely unqualified candidates for his major cabinet positions, even ones that are criminal or will need to have full FBI investigations because of their prior issues with national security. As I've said, he's dealing from a deck that just seems to be filled with just joker cards. It's just joker, 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 joker. And that's an affront and assault to our American democracy and a big middle finger to us. I said I don't think he's going to do that at the United States Supreme Court. He sees the Senate and the House as his playthings. Donald Trump does, and he sees them as lapdogs for him. I mean, who's to blame him? I mean, first of all, he is maniacal and he is narcissistic, but the Supreme Court basically told him, you can be a criminal. And we're not going to allow anybody to prosecute you. You're basically untouchable for most of what you do as the president. And we'll bend over backwards to put it in the category of immunity. I mean, hearing that, the guy was already a kleptomaniac. He was already grifting and stealing and committing crimes. That was music to his ears. But I didn't think he was going to insult the Supreme Court with the way he's insulting the Senate by suggesting that any of his cabinet picks are going to get confirmed. I mean, RFK Jr., in what world does the crazed, crackpot, anti-science, anti-vaxxer, who's with a worm in his brain, self-professed, become the director of Health and Human Services? In what world does the criminal, the guy that's about to be have a sex trafficking report released against him to the American public, become the attorney general? But that just shows complete lack of respect Donald Trump has for the Senate. He's going to try all these people. He's got backups already ready when they go down in flames, but he's willing to expend whatever political capital he has. I just didn't think he was going to do it at the United States Supreme Court. So Sauer has been his only appellate lawyer. He's been successful, and so I was not shocked that it was John Sauer. I would have actually been shocked if it wasn't, but I want people to understand what we're dealing with and what we're going to have to deal with. Now we're going to have a Solicitor General that's just going to pull this United States Supreme Court that already leans tremendously right all the way over. He's just if this is tug of war, he's just going to yank it over to the other side. Now I think he's going to annoy and piss off the center to the extent where there's a center. I'm not sure he'll get along with Amy Coney Barrett on a regular basis, and that's probably a good thing for our trying to get a fifth vote for anything on the moderate and progressive side. But, Amy Coney Barrett, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's become the intellectual heavyweight on the bench, as far as I'm concerned, along with Sotomayor, and takes on all challengers. It's going to be sort of fun and delightful to watch her regularly go after the Solicitor General. I think Amy Coney Barrett is going to regularly go after the Solicitor General and John Sauer as well. And we'll follow it. We have a new show here on Legal AF, exclusively called Unprecedented, about the United States Supreme Court. And we will follow all the comings and goings of John Sauer while he's considered the 10th justice. They're usually bestowed that title because the justices generally respect the person. They usually come out of the world of Supreme Court appellate advocacy, having been judges and or clerks. I could think of a lot worse people that he could have chosen. We know John Sauer very, very well because we have a criminal guy who just got elected president and he had a lot of appeals. So we got to see John Sauer in action. But Donald Trump right now is busy rewarding all the people that were supremely loyal to him. His two other major criminal lawyers that did well by him, by the way the looks of the Manhattan DA case is going and the sentencing there being delayed, and the other cases like Mar-a-Lago, is Todd Blanche, who was his lead criminal lawyer. I mean, there were a lot of criminal lawyers over the 4 years, but for the last 2 years, really been Todd Blanche and his partner, Emile Beauvais, and they've been rewarded. Todd Blanche is going to be the Deputy Attorney General. My prediction is when Matt Gaetz goes down in flames and can't be confirmed, Todd Blanche will be the Attorney General. And the first Deputy Attorney General will be Emile Beauvais, another criminal defense lawyer for Donald Trump. And then continuing to make sure that he's protected from attacks, Donald Trump put a complete lapdog in Jay Clayton in as the U.S. Attorney for Manhattan, the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney. So you won't have to worry about anybody shooting him in the back from what he considers to be one of his home states in New York. Jay Clayton had been the head of the SEC. He was pretty feckless, pretty useless in terms of regulation. He's a very good golfer, though, and plays regular golf with Donald Trump and people on Donald Trump's transition team, and is generally seen as somebody who is a patsy. And as I said, a meat puppet that will do whatever Donald Trump wants him to do. And Donald Trump wants to put in the all-powerful Southern District of New York Attorney General, Southern District of New York prosecutor's office, somebody like Jay Clayton. Jay Clayton was considered also for Attorney General. I think this is the bridesmaid prize for Jay Clayton, who's been loyal to Donald Trump and others around him for a long, long time and a favorite of the head of his transition team. So this is what we're watching, and all we can do for now is report on it, analyze it, break it down, be prepared, steel ourselves so that we're ready in the courts and the court systems as these cases go up to the United States Supreme Court. We now know the devil you know is better than one you don't know. And we know how to approach John Sauer when he is arguing for the Trump administration. When the department, they are the ones that advocate for the government's position. When these appeals come up from the lawsuits against Donald Trump's policies and executive laws, there'll be 1,000 of them before his 4 years is over. And every time one of those cases, there'll be 4 or 5 a year that'll end up with the United States Supreme Court. We know in advance how John Sauer operates. So I guess there's an advantage to that. We know how to counterpunch him because we've seen him in action so often. And again, as I've said before, and I'll say it on Unprecedented every week, we got to aim for Amy Coney Barrett. We got to find ways for Sauer to piss off Barrett and have her slide over and join the other three, try to grab on a rotating basis some version of Kavanaugh and Justice Roberts to try to count to 5 on things that matter to our rule of law. I'll follow it all right here. I appreciate you being here. Hit the subscribe button. The bigger we get as an independent pro-democracy channel in collaboration with the Midas Touch channel, the more your voice is heard. So until my next reporting, I'm Michael Popok for Legal AF. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.